conspiracies. Peering into darkness is what we do. Derek and Sharon Gilbert break it all down for you.
Welcome to the program. A beautiful spring day here in the Ozarks. I'm Derek Gilbert.
I am Sharon Gilbert, and welcome to our home, which is for sale. So if you're looking to resettle here in the Ozarks, hey, check us out on Realtor.
Absolutely. Great view of the cattle to the back and nothing but trees on the other side of the road.
It's gorgeous. We did have a showing a few days ago, and the people really liked the place. But because our house doesn't sit on a lake,
yeah,
and another house they did see sits on a lake, I think they're going to choose that one. But that's okay. 10 minutes south of here, and you get to Table Rock Lake.
Yeah.
And there's no flooding. When you sit on a lake, you can sometimes...
Depending on how close you are, yeah. If you're on the hillside overlooking the lake, that's a little different. But
boy, you pay a lot around here. I don't know, what other places charge if you are on or overlook a lake, but whoo.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us, taking time out of your schedule. PID Radio, to the best of our knowledge. We did have somebody ask us about a program. I meant to give him a shout out, and now I'm forgetting the name of the podcast. So forgive me. Somebody had asked about another podcast. It started very early on. It was a daily Bible reading, just reading the Bible out loud. And that is a worthwhile thing. Of course, we do that during our Gilbert House Fellowship Bible Study on Sunday mornings, which began in 2014. But that podcast began on January 1st of 2006. I looked it up.
Oh, yeah.
So as far as we know, we are the
oldest continually produced podcast.
Not the most popular, not the most listened to by any stretch of the imagination.
Now, Dr. Future started his, I think, 1 week after we did ours.
Yes. But sadly, Future Quake has since been discontinued.
I know, that makes me sad.
Yeah, because he and Tom Bionic did a great job.
They really did.
But if you want to continue listening without the risk of us being canceled, especially if you are watching or listening, although there's nothing really to watch on this program on YouTube. If you're subscribed through YouTube, thank you very much. Please hit the like button and add your comments to the program below. But then please take a moment and download our free mobile app to your smartphone or tablet, iOS, Android, Amazon, Kindle Fire, because that's a way to guarantee we never get canceled. Plus, there are some other nice features that come with the app.
Oh, very much so. Where you can talk to one another, you can form a community, that's been our goal all along as we started noticing that. I remember back in the very early days when we had 100 listens. We got so excited. But many, many of you out there not only listen, you subscribe. So thank you for that. And we want, if you are listening on the app or you are on the app at all, please just say hi to one another.
Oh, yeah.
And you can do that on YouTube as well.
And, just as long as you do that with gentleness and respect, as commanded by the Apostle Peter, we sure, appreciate and encourage that. So we are going to, cover a lot of stuff today. There's just a lot going on out there.
There's so much.
In terms of like major earth-shattering events, I mean, yes, the kinetic action, the war on Iran is exactly 1 month old today. It began on February 28th. So we've been following this for 4 weeks. And, I know the president has had to say some things politically, like it'll be quick, obviously that's not the case. And I don't think observers with any experience in the field ever believed it was going to be quick.
Mr. Gilbert, may I raise my
Mrs.
hand?
G.
Well, I don't recall the president saying it would be quick per se. I think I seem to remember that he said it could go 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's going to take longer than that.
I do too.
Yeah.
And that being said, by the way, one of the stories that I saw, I think it actually came out yesterday, Delta announced that they are pausing all flights to Tel Aviv until September.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's something we're going to have to talk about a little later when we talk about our Israel tour, which is scheduled for October.
Exactly.
That is something that we're going to have to consider very strongly.
Yeah, it's really helpful if you can actually get there to tour Israel.
No, you're going to have to, take a boat, your own boat, to get from the U.S. to Israel.
Do you think that maybe we could join that flotilla of 2 boats? Oh, wait, just 1 boat?
Yeah.
The Greta Thunberg.
Oh, is she doing that again?
No, she claimed she was going to do it again, but I never saw a follow-up to it.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, allegedly, I have to say, that there were going to be 100 boats in that flotilla. Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah. It's not just Delta. Delta suspended, until the fall, until September. Lufthansa Group suspended through April 9th. Some services disrupted, and these are all to Tel Aviv, until late May. British Airways resumption of Tel Aviv flights postponed until June 1st. Air Canada postponed until May 2nd. Wizz Air, you're going to fly on an airline called Wizz, W-I-Z-Z, Wizz Air.
Yeah.
Suspended in flights postponed until at least April. EasyJet suspended until the fall. Air Europa, Aegean, and Air Baltic canceled flights to Tel Aviv into April and May.
Now, you'll notice you did not read El Al.
No. El Al, excuse me, is likely to. They're still running flights.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. El Al flights. Hello. No, my tablet did not take the typing.
It didn't?
No. No.
Yeah, I'm not
I think in part it's my my shaky fingers.
Which you'll talk about in the OG report later on.
Yes. El Al has restricted flights to essential limited routes due to war-related airspace restrictions.
And I think
flights continue to and from New York, JFK, and Newark, Miami, Los Angeles, and Boston.
They're trying to get, there are a lot of Jewish people and families who want to make Aliyah now.
Yeah, that's the strange thing about Israel. They get into a war instead of people fleeing, and, there have been a few, but more often you get people who fly back, who return to Israel or make Aliyah, which is says something about the way the land draws its people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. By the way, I did see that, I think it was El Al, is restricting the number of passengers on the plane to 50.
Restricted passenger numbers, right? What I'm looking at doesn't show the number, but it does say restricted passenger numbers.
I saw 50 on X this morning.
Okay. Outgoing service continues from major hubs like New York, Boston, LA, and Miami. Yeah. Essential recovery flight operations are ongoing. So at least El Al is still bringing people home because of the war. It looks like the bookings are somewhat flexible. Now, if you need to guarantee your return flight, they've got an option called Book with Confidence, which I imagine means an additional fee, which would give you priority on specific flights. Otherwise, you may be bumped to another flight. But anyway, it's travel during wartime is tricky. And Tel Aviv did get hit overnight with cluster bombs. And I will point out again, isn't it curious that the United Nations, which made such a fuss about the alleged use of cluster munitions by the Russians in Ukraine, has fallen totally silent when it comes to the repeated use of cluster bombs by Iran against Israel, targeting civilian areas.
Yes. Yeah. And it isn't just the cluster bombs. It's a lot of the missiles coming in from Iran are not going to IDF targets. They're going to civilian areas.
They're targeting civilian areas. The U.S. and Iran, with the notable exception, of course, of that girls' school that got hit. And again, there's some who claim that it was a misfired IRGC missile. But
that's what I saw. You mean the U.S. and Israel?
U.S. and Israel. When that girls' school got hit, it was reported that even if it was a U.S. missile, that it was because of old information that it was formerly used as an IRGC.
Hospitals, schools, soft targets, they are often used to hide munitions by Hamas, IRGC.
Yeah, not as
Houthis,
often
whatever.
by the IRGC. Hamas makes a regular practice of it, and so does Hezbollah.
Mm-hmm.
But the point is that the United States and Israel, to the best of our knowledge, does not knowingly target civilian infrastructure or civilian dwellings, whereas, Iran is just openly targeting the city of Tel Aviv, which, other than Ben Gurion Airport and a couple of IDF locations, is mostly civilian.
This is genocidal. The IRGC
Certainly
would love
more so.
to erase all Israelis from the land, all Jews. I shouldn't say Israelis, because there are a lot of Arab Israelis. There are Bedouin Israelis.
Right.
They are citizens with rights.
Yeah.
They just want the Jews gone.
They want the Jews gone. And in the Muslim mind, we've talked about this before, any land that once belonged to the Ummah, the Islamic world, must always belong to Islam. And if it does not, then everything must be done. No expense to be spared to return it to the Ummah. And that it's like a splinter that you can't get removed in the psyche of Muslims. And they are angry at Israel because Israel has the audacity to exist. Mm-hmm. That's it.
Yes. Even though Israel was in the land long before Islam was a thing.
Yeah. I mean, they claim that Israel had a little exchange on X the other day with, it was somebody who discovered something I posted weeks and weeks ago about Rashida Tlaib, the congresswoman from Michigan, complaining about something she saw on, and I forget, it was the Department of Homeland Security. I think it was DHS or ICE had posted something, a sign saying, "We will have our country again." And the implication being that, look, we're going to remove those who have entered the country illegally. Mm-hmm. Now, Tlaib is the daughter of immigrants, and she was putting on a good show on the floor of Congress for the benefit of the C-SPAN cameras. How am I supposed to feel as the daughter of immigrants, as a Muslima, when something like this says, I don't belong here? It's like, your parents immigrated legally. Mm-hmm. You're in the United States Congress.
Legally.
Yeah.
Exactly. You got a what are you complaining about?
What are you complaining about?
What I love about C-SPAN is that the camera will make it look as if someone speaking is addressing a lot of people.
Right.
But oftentimes the house is empty.
They'll pull back and show the wide shot. And you see, one guy playing Farmville on his iPad or something. Another guy trading.
A janitor going through. Somebody else trading stocks on his app. So my comment was, what is she complaining about? She's a member of the United States Congress. I know.
How welcome would we as American Christians be in Nablus?
Yeah, we're not.
Yeah, and there was a fellow who took issue with that. But look, I'm sorry. The point is, she's self-identifying with illegal migrants when she is the daughter of legal migrants. And it's not saying you don't belong here. I mean, you're in Congress. Mm-hmm. Come on.
I know. The hilarity is.
Yeah. But we are living in times when things are just totally upside down. Israel, where the left has gone so far left that it's left leftists behind.
It's left the building.
We talked about Bill Maher before the program and how he just pointed out that the younger generation, and this is true even at among young Republicans right now, who have a very low opinion of Israel. It's because they're getting their foreign policy ideas from TikTok. Mm-hmm. And Bill Maher, who's in his 60s, is saying, look, you kids, you don't know bleep. Every war Israel has fought has been a defensive war. Even in 56, the Suez Canal crisis, 67, where Israel launched ground operations before their Arab neighbors. It's because Egypt closed off access to the port of Eilat, which is an act of war. And in 1967, Gamal Nasser was moving assets into the Sinai to prepare for war. Just Israel struck first because their army was much, much smaller than Egypt's.
Well, that's what you have to do.
Yeah.
That is exactly what you have to do.
Yeah, we wait until they hit us first and they'll overrun us and we'll be dead.
Yeah, if you find this topic really interesting, Derek has part one of a 2-book series coming out later this year that's called The War of the Watchers. And it's the war for the Temple Mount.
Yeah, it only gets up to World War I because I'd gotten there and realized I already had a full book. And Sharon says, well, make it 2 books. And Defender Publishing very graciously said, okay. So,
Yay!
book 1 will be out in August.
Well, total left turn, still political a bit. If you are listening to this and you don't know about this story, then look it up. Melania Trump was walking around with a cyborg, with a robot in the White House.
Yeah. Saw that. That was really interesting.
It's really creepy looking, too.
It was
Not
creepy.
her. She looks beautiful all the time. But it was a black and white humanoid construct that appeared to be walking like a human would walk.
It did. This was a meeting of the first ladies of a number of nations. I saw she was seated next to Bridget Macron at the table there.
No.
Yeah. Candace. Candace.
Oh, I know. It's hilarious. And of course, having the robot be black and white instead of all gray or, silver or all white or all black, whatever. It was as if saying, okay, this is what it is. It is not any sort of new race coming upon us, to which Derek and I would say, are you sure? Are you sure about this? Because we're thinking this could be really bad if technology continues in this direction.
Yeah.
We've had a wonderful chat a couple of times with Lieutenant Colonel Bob McGinnis about this very topic. He's written about the tech used in warfare and specifically AI.
Yeah, he's got a new book out called The New AI Cold War. It's available from Defender Publishing at Amazon, all major booksellers. His previous book was called AI for Humanity's Future. And he's got a 3rd book in this trilogy coming out next year titled The Final Algorithm, which is a great title.
It is.
The thing is, was the robot programmed? I mean, because again, this is a humanoid robot. Okay, so a cyborg, I think, is a better term for it. Or was it powered by an AI? I don't know that.
I don't know either. And I'm not sure that I'm looking through the article that I saved right now.
Oh, okay. This comes from the company that I mentioned last week. Peter Diamandis visited Figure AI. So this is an AI bot.
Yes.
So this is the one I talked about last week where it's networked. And what one learns, they all learn. Yes.
That is exactly right. And when many years ago, I wrote a chapter for Tom Horn. I may have talked about this on here before. And it was contained the idea of morphic resonance. That is not my term. It was coined by, the name escapes me for a second, but I'll think of it in a minute. I think he was from Oxford. And he believes that organic, not cyborg, but cyborg just means cyber organism.
Yeah.
That truly organic creatures, if, say, a tree frog, learns how to evade a predator here, all tree frogs in a very short time will learn it. I don't know if that's true or not. He very much believes it is. But I will just say this. It's my belief that the world is a whole lot more complicated than we can imagine it to be. When the Lord God created this universe and created Earth and all the organisms upon it, he did so in a way that was mutually beneficial. All organisms worked with one another to altruistically benefit one another. This is my personal belief. It was only after Adam and Eve sinned that a curse fell upon all creation. And then you had less cooperation. And eventually you got into predators that they eat one another. That wasn't the original design at all.
Yeah.
So it may be possible that a holdover exists, that at one time they all did, one learned, they all learned. I don't know, but if it's hardwired into these figure cyborgs, that's really creepy, because then you get into Bible prophecy where you see in Ezekiel 38, I think it is, where you see the creatures that are coming after Israel. They behave as if they are one mind.
Joel's army.
Yes.
Chapter.
They climb in the windows. They leap up on the walls. They do not interfere with one another.
Right, Joel 3, I think.
Yeah, whereas if you get locusts, they will bump into one another all the time.
Right, yeah.
And that just sort of makes them more angry. These are like a hive mind in prophecy. And I think we may be seeing a hint at that. Because you and I believe, at least I do, that the 200 million individual army that are coming from the east, those are spirits. Those are demons.
Yeah.
And they're looking for something to give them a body.
Right. And AI may offer them that. And
exactly.
Right. We've talked about this and speculated on this many times, going back years, that the electronic brain of an AI, given that the human mind is a bioelectrical device and can be overwhelmed and overpowered, that an electrical thinking device may also be overwhelmed.
Of course, having the Euphrates dry up so they could come over probably is helpful too.
Yeah.
But the Euphrates, it's more than just cyborgs getting wet. The Euphrates is a liminal boundary.
Right.
It represents a boundary between the other world that we can't see and our material space.
Right. And so does the Jordan. We talked about that before on our Bible study. The Jordan, the reason that the mountains of Avarim, the mountains of Moab on the east side of the Dead Sea, were so named is it was a Bible encyclopedia going back, or a Bible dictionary going back a century ago, interpreted Avarim as meaning those on the other side. And they thought, the translators at that point thought that meant, on the other side of the Jordan. But the discovery of the texts of Ugarit, which is the ancient Amorite kingdom from northern Syria, showed that the cognate term in their language, the same word from Hebrew, but in the Ugaritic language, meant those on the other side of the veil, those who cross over.
The travelers.
Hence the travelers, Ezekiel 39. It was Joel chapter 2, by the way, not Joel 3. Joel's army. Fire devours before them, and behind them a flame burns. Where was the verse that you were referring to? Like warriors, they charge. Like soldiers, they scale the wall. They march each on his own way. They do not swerve from their paths. They do not jostle one another.
The way locusts do.
Each marches in his path. They burst through the weapons and are not halted. Yeah. So figure 03
now
was the cyborg at the White House.
I have a connected story.
It's always good when we connect instead of bouncing around like locusts.
There are attempts to meld together, to combine together clay and iron, you might say. The cyborg, the cyber organism, but with human cells involved, which is ironic because we've been hearing for decades that computers are so much superior to the human brain, and yet the human brain is the model, and in some cases actually being included in the wiring, in the circuits for these.
Like we discussed last week.
Yeah, well, these are mini brains. So if these mini brains are brainoids that are being grown specifically to be part of a literal neural network inside these entities, then is this a fulfillment of iron and clay?
I would think that that's a good. I think that's a good guess, a good analysis. I was thinking it's more than a guess.
You just made a little face. Are you in pain?
We'll talk about this in the OG report.
Yeah, I know.
Big toe. Yesterday,
OG report. Just
random stabbing pain in my big toe. Yeah.
Well, I'm not stabbing Derek, in case you're wondering. I am a good, well, I don't know, maybe 8-10 feet away from him.
Yeah. So no, Sharon is not responsible. But that was the cause of the face. Yeah. Yeah. This is the kind of, it actually was the kind of thing that happened while we were in Israel back in 2023, and the neuropathy started coming in. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And by the way, in case you're wondering, because we'll get very well-intentioned recommendations on what to do for neuropathy. It's not neuropathy at this point. It is the fact that my immune system is basically attacking and killing the nerves in my extremities.
I have neuropathy, which is essentially the nerves screaming. And so I take medicine that tells them to shut up. Mm-hmm. But I also take a lot of herbal vitamins and things like that, and nutraceuticals is what they're often called, to stay healthy. And my doctor, well, she's so funny. She always says, boy, you seem to be doing really well, blah, blah, blah. And the last time I saw her, she said, you've lost a little weight. Maybe you're a little on the thin side this time, a little too thin. And so yesterday, Derek and I stopped at one of the great restaurants we love between here and Springfield, and I enjoyed myself.
Exactly. Doctors said, hey, you got to eat more.
Exactly. I got to put on a few pounds. So, hey, I'm doing my best.
I've been working on that myself. But again, we'll talk about that at the end of the program.
Yep. So anyway, the brainoids, a connected story to that is that there is a company now growing headless bodies.
What?
Oh, you didn't know this?
No, I didn't see that.
Oh, yes, a company growing headless bodies, because then, technically, since there's no brain, allegedly that's the seat of the person, then they're not humans. They are growing them so that the organs can be used for transplantation.
Oh, that's gruesome.
And these headless bodies can be used for experiments.
Okay.
Which they're saying, this is great. We don't have to do animal studies anymore. We can go right to human experimentation.
Wow.
To which I say, no. First of all, you don't be doing that, because get your own dirt. But because they're using stem cells to do it. And then the second thing I would have to say is no head. That doesn't mean it's not something that can be possessed. Think about what you're doing here. But also, if the plan is to use them for experimentation, say testing a drug, you have to have the actual full human complement of activities. Well, the brain is a big seat of hormonal and neurological activity.
Yeah, this is a biotech startup called R3 Bio, and they're trying to phrase it in a way
I know.
that sounds less gruesome. They're committed to designing complete organ systems to be used in the research and development of drugs, and potentially as a source of tissues and organs for humans.
Reminds me of the Clonus horror. There's this movie, terrible movie.
Oh.
But if you like really awful movies and you can sit there and enjoy them with a bag of popcorn.
Peter Graves.
Yes. And there, we watched it using...
it was Mystery Science Theater 3000.
MST3K.
Yeah.
And the chase scene is hilarious.
Oh, gosh.
They're going at about 2 miles an hour.
Yeah. Maybe 4. I mean,
Yeah.
they were really revving it up. Reb Brown, who was the hunky protagonist of the film, lousy actor, but, hunky.
We highly recommend, if you're an MST3K fan, watch the Clonus horror, CLONUS.
Yeah, it's one of those movies that's so bad it's good.
But the whole point is that there was a factory growing bespoke human bodies for transplantation.
Right.
So if you were wealthy, you could order one.
It's similar to a much better film with Ewan McGregor,
The
Michael
Island.
Clark Duncan. Yeah, The Island, where people were in this big facility. Yeah,
Don't give spoilers
we'll
if
give it
you
away
want to watch it.
that's actually really a good movie.
Yeah, very
it's
good.
It's a cautionary tale, and it's kind of leading to where we are today.
Sci-fi has been offering up cautionary tales for a century or more, and that people just don't pay any attention.
This is really disgusting. These scientists, according to and this has been widely reported this week, so I'm surprised I missed it.
Me too, because it was
Daily
on my
Mail,
X
New York
feed.
Post, Yahoo. It was widely reported, and that must be the one day, the only time that I didn't look at your X feed this week, because it really is disgusting. They're using the phrase organ sacs.
Yeah,
organ sacs.
Yeah,
and so the human body is nothing more than a
sack of organs. But if you put a head
there's no
on it,
head because it can't feel anything. It's not thinking. It's brainless. Well, they don't want to like to use that term brainless, but they're thinking that somehow by leaving the brain out of it, you remove all the ethical objections to harvesting. It's like it's using the human body. Yeah.
It is using the Lord's creation for
organ farming.
Yeah, for nefarious ends. To which I say, get your own dirt. The Lord created everything here. If you can create something by just speaking it, and we're not talking about law of attraction. You can't, no. You have to actually, nothing being there.
Yeah.
And you speak it into existence.
Yeah. The CEO of a Singapore-based investment fund called Immortal Dragons, a guy named Boyang Wang, one of the chief backers of R3 Bio, quote, "If we can create a non-sentient, headless bodyoid for a human being, that will be a great source of organs," end quote.
I honestly...
Look, dude, I'm sorry. You are not supposed to live forever.
No.
Mr. Immortal Dragon.
No, and I honestly...
There are immortal dragons out there. You don't want to meet one.
Oh, well, they're sort of immortal, but they do have an end coming.
Oh, yeah, a fiery end in the lake of fire. Good grief.
Yeah, I honestly assumed you had seen this story.
No, that's why I reacted so strongly when you mentioned it. And this really makes me angry.
And it
R3
should.
has already shown and demonstrated it can create mouse organ sacs. But she said they have yet to implement the science. Once vermin organ sacs are made, quoting from the New York Post, the company hopes to expand into monkey organ sacs and ultimately bodyoids made from
in
human
other words, they haven't done it yet, but
they're trying to make lots and lots of money from billionaires. Yeah.
But here's the other thing. Yeah, they're going to get investors.
Yeah.
The other
Who
thing
want
is
immortality without God.
But along with this brainoid, this company uses stem cells as well. So if this company got together with the other company and this company said, well, we can grow the head for you that technically isn't sentient, we'll put it with the body, but then give it an AI brain. Then you've got a Cylon.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, you may be sitting there thinking, well, this will never happen.
Doesn't mean they're not going to try, first of all.
When I was a kid, Dick Tracy talked to his agents on a watch, on a wristwatch. And I thought that was, who could ever do that? Well, before I was born, somebody said, let's do radio. We'll call it, we'll talk over the airwaves. People thought that was what seems impossible today could be commonplace 50 years hence.
Yeah. The other thing, thinking about this from a theological perspective, they will get people like Mr. Wang of Immortal Dragons, who believes in science as a path to salvation. Mm-hmm. And in fact, that's the very first line of the New York Post story. Sad sack or serious salvation, ?
Well, that's just it.
They're going to believe in this.
Transhumanism.
This is transhumanism, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
This is how they're trying to stick the nose of the camel under the tent. And hey, look, we're just saving all these poor monkeys being used in experiments from pain and suffering. We'll just grow these bodyoids and we'll experiment on them instead. Hey, we can use these to replace organ. We'll grow these human bodyoids. And that's where, because right now, the supply of transplant organs for transplant, is not near what's needed.
It's very low.
That's why China is making lots and lots of money by carving up political and religious prisoners, people who object to the
Well, we have to say allegedly. There is no, Derek and I haven't seen proof of it, but I see a lot of references to it.
We have to say allegedly, but I did 2 interviews in 2016 of the producer and director of a documentary about this practice.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I agree. I'm just, you have to be careful.
Yeah. Okay. So allegedly, we have to say, we don't know, but we know that this goes on. It's been testified before the United States Congress that there is a trade in organ transplant tourism, shall we say. Mm-hmm. And that the supply of organs is coming from who knows where. Oh, yeah. Falun Gong and other political dissidents.
Wasn't there a story out of the UK last year or the year before about a couple that were prosecuted because they essentially bought a child from Africa, and this couple were of African origin.
Yes.
And they brought the child in specifically for organ transplant.
Yes. Yep, that was a story. That was a thing, and
that is part of trafficking, human trafficking.
This is the desire to live forever without trusting in the promise, the blessed hope that we as Christians have of incorruptible bodies. Read 1 Corinthians 15. That chapter explains what Christian theology, the promise of Christ, is all about.
Yes.
He was raised as the first fruits. In other words, he's the template the rest of us will follow in the twinkling of an eye at the sound of the trump. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed. These people, R3 Bio and other companies like it, are trying to say, you don't need God. And the unspoken part of that sentence is, then you don't need to change the way you're living.
That's exactly
You can keep on living according to what you find right, and instead of according to what God has declared right. You can set aside all that, those things that he said, are sin, and you could just keep doing all of those. And when your kidneys wear out or your liver gives out, well, hey, we'll just take one from the organ sack over here.
Well, let me also
go to the organ farm.
Let me also say that this is saying these individuals who are looking at this as a means for extending the natural lifespan. This is eternal life, you might say, without the blood of Christ.
Yes, right.
Instead of the blood of Christ, they want the blood of other humans.
Yes.
Used in some way.
Like vampire.
Yeah, kind of, which is what the fallen realm are all about. Dr. Judd Burton has talked about this with you many, times.
Right.
He believes vampires exist, spiritually speaking, and they can, once they possess or control a human being, they can convince the human being to do that kind of thing as well. And it's not always the obvious vampire. I think desiring the shedding of blood is a spiritually wicked activity.
Right. God declared that to Noah in Genesis chapter 9, that, human blood gets shed, there'll be a reckoning even from an animal.
Because there's something special about human blood.
Right. But you can't get more Antichrist than the vampire.
I know.
Vampire sheds your blood so he can live forever. Christ shed his blood so we can live forever. It's has to live in the darkness, can't ever see the light. Jesus, when he returns, don't be no more need for sun or moon, because God himself will be our light. So, it's just fundamentally 180 degrees, diametrically opposed. Judd draws the connection going all the way back to the Nephilim.
Yes.
Yeah. In fact,
which you should put this in the War of the Watchers.
I wrote a chapter on that for God's Ghostbusters, a collection that Tom Horn published back around 2014 or thereabouts. Anyway.
I'm trying to think if maybe my morphic resonance thing was in that same collection. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'd mentioned that in there, and one of the discernment ministries apparently took issue with that and published an article on the interwebs about how that was so ridiculous. Well.
Like I said, the world is far more complicated than we can understand.
There is more in heaven and earth, Horatio, than has been dreamt of in your philosophy or our philosophy. Sorry, Mr. Shakespeare, or what was the other she speaker?
Oh, my goodness.
The theory that was put out there a few weeks ago
that
scholars said Shakespeare was actually a woman.
What a strange thing.
Because it's an anagram for she speaker.
Well, may I just go to another connected story?
Yeah.
Not with regards to growing bodies or anything, but it has to do with abuse of human beings. This is probably not isolated to the UK, but I watch a lot of UK news. Because the UK, what goes on there will eventually come here.
Yeah.
So in the UK, and it probably is going on here as well, but just isn't getting into the news, children as young as 11 years old, when they walk past certain mini-marts, and I put that in air quotes, because there are places on the high street, and that's just another sort of phrase that the UK, the English use for a street where you shop a lot. Oxford Street is the main shopping district of London, so that's the high street. But they go past barbershops or candy stores, places that are not what they appear to be, and they are offered, hey, come here. 11 years old. Wouldn't you like a drink? Would you like to feel better? Would you like to, get high? They are being groomed through these activities for SE something. For that.
That is disturbing.
It's part of grooming gang activity, which is so prevalent throughout big cities over there, and it's probably going on here as well, but it's not being investigated. Rupert Lowe over in the UK, who is with the Restore Party, I think, he's been attending the investigations, and he says what he hears from these girls and boys who have been abused, groomed to trust an individual, and then once they start taking the drugs or taking the alcohol, smoking the cigarettes, and they're not in their right minds, things happen to them.
He ran an independent investigation into the grooming gangs, and what he found was just horrific. That not only were children, and again, it was mostly Asian, and the word Asian means Pakistani in the UK.
Or actually, it could also mean Arab. It's a very...
North African, right?
Indian. Yeah. I mean, it covers a whole big... It's sort of like not European.
Yeah. They've had a lot of Arabs who have emigrated into the UK in the last couple of years, but there's a larger Pakistani population in the UK that's been there for a while, dating back to the time when the UK controlled all of what is now India and Pakistan. They split in a very violent, bloody conflict around 1948.
These are individuals who see children, boys or girls,
yes, as
objects for their pleasure.
Right. I wrote about that in the book Bad Moon Rising as part of the chapters devoted to Inanna, Ishtar, and her influence on that religion. Inanna, if you're not familiar, was the Sumerian goddess of sex and war. And
she also could change
not
her
wars
gender.
even so much as just violence, but yes, she was also
Gender
the original
fluid.
transgender entity on planet Earth. In fact, in some pantheons, like the Hurrian pantheon, the Canaanite pantheon, she was actually two entities, one male, one female. But it was understood that, the one with the beard and the one without are the same one. It's just, different aspects of the same entity.
These are spirits. They can appear however they choose.
Right. And in Pakistan, there was a survey done, and this was, bearing in mind I wrote the book about 9 years ago, but a survey that had been done of Pakistani truck drivers showing that 60% of them had partaken of young boys at truck stops along their routes and had no problem with that. And a lot of these guys are married. It's just, it's okay.
Yeah.
The Afghan culture, which again is Muslim.
It's called boy play. Yeah.
Bacha Batsi, which is what your imagination probably suggests that it is. And it's really unconscionable that the British government has turned a blind eye to this worldview and this treatment of its children to this culture that it has imported over the last 70 or 80 years. And because they don't want to be seen as, they'll call us racist if we investigate and say that it's a cultural thing or a religious worldview or whatever. So you just sweep it under the rug. And that's what Rupert Lowe's investigation found. The Daily Mail and other, the Sun, the Telegraph, other news outlets there have been reporting on this. But the government still seems unwilling to do anything about it. Yes, there are some who've been prosecuted and sent to prison, but for the most part, it's like when Sadiq Khan was interviewed by...
the mayor of London.
Yeah, the mayor of London was not interviewed. He was questioned about this during one of the...
London County Council
Right,
meetings.
The county, right. And a member of the Tory party, a woman, in the video that I saw, was demanding answers from him, and he just pretended like he didn't know what the phrase grooming meant, or the term grooming.
Grooming is essentially preparing a person to do what you want.
Yeah. Basically leading them step by step. You don't start with, the deep end of the pool. You lead them in slowly, as you say. These shops encouraging them to, hey, this is like candy. It makes you feel good.
There was a story a couple of weeks ago about the Met Police finding, and I'm not sure who reported it, but they found a young girl intoxicated, and she had been, we'll say abused, but you know what I actually mean, by multiple men for hours and hours. She was arrested because she was drunk.
Yeah. Can't go after the men.
Exactly.
They'll say we're racist.
Or they'll hurt us. I think bottom line is I think that the government, they may have begun with complicity, but I think they're now afraid.
Losing control of certain areas.
Well, that's the plan, isn't it?
Yeah. There was a member of the European Parliament who admitted during a session this week that there are no-go zones, which is, it's well known. It's just the government doesn't want to admit it. No-go zones in major European capitals, Paris, Brussels, Amsterdam, where Muslims form such a majority. And whenever the police come in there, they are watched. And if they try to execute an arrest warrant or what have you. Suddenly they're surrounded, and it's So the cops is like, oh, that's we don't go there. And like we talked about a few weeks ago with the mounted Sharia police in Manchester, and the cops are told not to interfere.
I know, and one of the tragedies, obvious tragedies, of course, and individual boys and girls, and even older into teens and teen years, that have been scarred physically and emotionally for their entire lives. But we're talking about the human race. Not forget skin color. We're talking about humanity is a target of the fallen realm. The only salvation is through Christ Jesus and his blood. That's it.
Right.
And most of the world are following other lowercase truths.
Yeah.
They think this is the way to eternal life or to eternal pleasure in the case of Muslim men.
Yeah, yeah.
It's tragic in so many ways.
Raymond Ibrahim has written about this for years. He's an author that we've mentioned previously. I'm finally going to get an interview with him for his new book, The Two Swords of Christ.
Oh, I love that book.
Probably late April. He, in his, maybe in his columns, I follow his columns at his website, RaymondIbrahim.com. And he's also got a YouTube channel where he's getting very active and putting out short form videos about specific things, specific topics that he's been writing about for years. When Spain was invaded in the early 8th century and conquered, and it was under control of Muslim rulers for 700 years, thereabouts, they had such an appetite for blonde women that by the time they were finally ejected from Spain, and the final push was under Ferdinand and Isabella, the ones who gave Columbus the funding to go search for it. And it's, by the way, it's not well known. The reason Columbus was sailing west to try to find India was because it was too dangerous to go through the known routes to India.
Yeah.
To sail to Egypt and then kind of, hike across what later became the Suez Canal, that route, and then pick up a boat in the Red Sea and then continue on. Because you had to go through the Muslims. Yeah. And they'd kill you. So that's why Columbus was going west. Anyway, and actually he was trying to sail west. There was a thought that maybe he'd encounter some mythical Christian figure named Prester John.
I remember that. That's
legend
so
of
strange.
Prester John. Yeah. Anyway, Ferdinand and Isabella were the ones who kicked the Muslims out of Spain finally. And because the Jews were not Christian, the Jews were kicked out as well. The Jews were not the targets of their order.
They just said, if you will not convert, you have to leave.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, the point is that by the time in the late 15th century, the Muslims were finally ejected, the caliphs had been intermarrying, or rather breeding with white women for so long that they didn't look Arab anymore. Their skin was just as light, and they had a lot of blue-eyed kids too. So,
ironically, Spain is welcoming them back.
Yeah, I know.
You get to stay, no problem. Come on in.
Yeah, and the imams who are saying, Europe is Muslim. Now, it's like, look, when they tell you who they are, believe them.
And when they tell you that they plan to do harmful things to you, believe them. Because
there's a 1,400-year track record of them making good on those promises.
Does it mean that every Muslim you meet is like that? No. No, not at all. But those that are called radicalized, they are actually getting back to what they believe is the true fundamentalist view of Islam. Those more moderate Muslims that are caught up in that, look, pray for them. Pray for all of them, for goodness sake. The Lord wants us to lift him up to all the world, not just those that we think might be receptive. We lift him up to all the world.
Yeah. Now, we pray for those who are called to witness in Muslim lands, because that's not always a safe thing to do.
No.
We understand and recognize that there are some Christian ostensibly Christian pastors in Arab-controlled areas that seem to be more faithful to their Arab heritage than to the gospel of Jesus Christ. The guy that was interviewed by Tucker Carlson about a year and a half ago,
the one
Mukhtar Isaac,
said Jesus was Muslim.
Yeah.
Or Arab or something.
Yeah. On October 8th of 2023, kind of rationalized why Hamas, why it was understandable why Hamas just killed 1,200 people. It's because they're so oppressed.
No.
Really? Is that the gospel you follow? But he's in Bethlehem, which has gone from like 60% Muslim to now 8% Muslim or some 12% Muslim over the last 50, 60 years.
Now, is it what?
Bethlehem used to be a 60% Christian community. Christian community.
Yes. Very few Christians are in there now.
Yeah, it's not 12%. It's not because of Israeli oppression or Jewish oppression. It's because that area is under Palestinian control. So anyway, we pray for those people. That is not our calling. Just as there are people on the front lines of rescuing children who are being trafficked and groomed. We met Troy Brewer last year. He came to Skywatch TV, but we had known about him for a while. Mando de la Vega from Morningside, Jim Baker's place, had told us about him a few years ago. We were on our way back from a conference and had a stopover in Dallas, and lo and behold, there's Mando. And he was just coming back from Mexico, where he'd been with Troy Brewer. And Troy was on another mission to buy children from traffickers. And I mean, that's literally what he does.
It's the way he's able to rescue them. They see a rich Texan come in.
Yeah. And
they figure, here we go. And he buys them and then takes them back to the United States. Right. And he helps to, he gives them a brand new life. Right.
And he's doing this all around the world. So, and we were stunned when we met Troy at Skywatch TV. We were very happy that he was there. And in fact, that was the week Joe had something else going on, and I forget what it was, but I was the guest host for that week. So I got to interview Troy. Yeah,
I kind of remember that. I remember, if you wonder why I wear a hat, it's because my eyes with my Bummian gland dysfunction, my corneas are very sensitive to light or my eyes are sensitive to light because they don't get the proper amount of oil. So, long story. I wear a hat. So I'm sitting there in my hat, and Troy wears a hat almost all the time, and he said, can I keep my hat on? And I won't say her name, but a gal who is sort of a floor producer, you might say, said, no, you got to take it off. And I looked at Troy and I said, sorry, I'm not taking mine off. I just can't. I have to sit there and just keep my eyes closed
otherwise, she'd be with her eyes closed. But Troy, I was astonished that he even knew who we were.
I know. Yeah.
Because he's out there in the front lines and others like him. He's, not the only one. And usually they're very low key. They prefer not to be well known. Thankfully, the people that he's doing business with, in a manner of speaking, don't watch Skywatch TV. They're on the front lines and they really need your prayers. People who are in deliverance ministry. Tom Dunn, who basically stepped in after the passing of Russ Dizdar. Greg Reed.
Vicki Joy Anderson.
Yep.
Mike Lake.
Yes. Who early on The View from the Bunker interviewed him and then his wife Mary about their experiences here in mid-Missouri, which is, you figure is, rural mid-America, about as conservative. Springfield, Missouri is the buckle of the Bible Belt.
Well, at conferences, you and I have seen L.A. Marzulli and Peggy Marzulli interact with someone that needed help immediately. So there are a lot of...
they're on the front lines.
Yeah.
And the people who are following the call of the Lord to minister in foreign lands, the evangelists who go around the world, missionaries who go out in the field, God bless them. That is not our calling. even when we were younger, would have been physically able was not really our calling. We're sort of like the intelligence analysts in the back room trying to send information out to people on the front lines. And it is through your help that we can do that, because, this is not a glamorous thing. We don't do television because we want to be famous. And when I was younger, I probably wanted to be famous. I think that's why the Lord held off opening the doors that he opened for us until I was a little older and realized, that's kind of foolish. But we do it because it's a way to get the message out. That's it. And we thank you for your help in being able to do what we do. Even when it's clear that I'm not up to speed on things that you are. Boy, that human organ sex thing is just astonishing.
Well, if you are listening to this and you missed that story as well, you need to follow me on X.
Yes.
It's just at Sharon K, just the letter K, Sharon K. Gilbert. So Sharon, letter K, Gilbert. I use that handle on all social media. And I try to find stories, a variety of stories that I think are important to, as believers, to where we're headed. And occasionally I'll share something from an account that has puppies or something like that. A little, timeline cleanse.
Yeah. No, I'm at Derek Gilbert. Well, all of these links, our social media links, are in the show notes. And we've also got a Substack account that we encourage you to follow, gilberthouse.substack.com, where all of our content goes. In fact, this program will be there, as well as excerpts from our books. And on Thursdays, Throwback Thursday episodes, we just done 3 with Tom Horn, our first interview with him from back in March of 2006.
So who are you going to pick next?
I don't know.
We did some very early ones with David Flynn.
Oh, yes, those would be fascinating. All right, that's it. David Flynn will be coming up next. The occult signature of the 1947 Roswell crash. That was one of our, I think, most jaw-dropping episodes.
Oh, I know. It's just, he's with the Lord.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that he and Tom Horn have had many interesting discussions.
Oh, yeah.
And Mike
Heiser, too, because Mike liked David. Yeah. They met at the Guy Malone Ancient of Days Bible UFO conferences.
I know. Well, you had mentioned a few minutes ago, and then we'll do the OG report, I think, after this. You had mentioned, because I assume that we're getting about an hour.
We're about 1 hour.
You had mentioned the thank you for all of you who've been so wonderful, supporting us with prayer and encouragement, and in some cases, helping us with our finances. If you go through health needs, you know that sometimes there are surprise bills. So thank you very much for all of that. And we just recently found out, we mentioned it last week, but we just recently found out some of you had been giving through the app. Don't know how you managed it. Yeah. You guys are amazing. But the builders of the app, Subsplash, have refunded those donations to you because we just discovered it. They discovered it. They were amazed as well. But we want to thank you. If you'd wondered why we hadn't thanked you for all those many months, it's because we didn't know. So thank you, thank you, thank you. You guys, seriously, you just make us weep, because what you do is, there just aren't any words. Yeah.
It's makes these programs possible. The cost of the web hosting and the fact that we don't have to be working a full-time job doing something else to pay the bills and trying to squeeze this in the evenings and weekends.
Since you've retired from Skywatch TV because of your health, we're still associated with Skywatch TV, but it's not an income for you anymore. So
correct. Yeah,
it's even more important. So thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, speaking of health, I had a nerve conduction test yesterday, electromyograph and nerve conduction test. This was something that the neurologist, Dr. Maganti, wanted to see anyway, but it became really important because the insurance company, which has been resisting the recommended treatment for my condition, which is chronic inflammatory demyelinating polyneuropathy, or CIDP for short. It's not one of those diseases that has enough people to warrant TV commercials during the news broadcasts. Tonight's
Showing
news
happy
brought to you
people
by-
with all of these verbal warnings.
Exactly, yeah. It's an infusion of antibodies, immunoglobulin.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really expensive because they get the immunoglobulin from donors.
Mm-hmm.
So without insurance, we do have health insurance, but again, they're resisting the cost because for my weight, one course of treatment is like $40,000.
Yeah.
So, and because it has to be repeated every 3 to 6 weeks, you multiply that over the course of a year and you're up to about $500,000. So they're not really crazy about having to spend that for me, but that's what my doctor has recommended. They want me to go through 3 months of really powerful steroids first. And he's like, that's not going to fix your problem. And it's going to make, cause side effects. And then there are risks with the IVIG as well, but not nearly as with the steroids. So they wanted to see the results of the nerve conduction test. And it told us what we already know.
Mm-hmm.
Not only am I, when it comes to my lower legs and feet, not just the myelin is degraded, but the nerves are damaged. With my arms and hands, there is some muscular wasting in my hands. My hands are child strength at this point. I pick up a phone. My cell phone feels like it weighs 5 pounds. Sharon has to open, the bottled water caps and things like that because I can't get them open anymore. With the IVIG, that should begin to at least stop the progression of the disease and roll it back. How far it rolls it back remains to be seen, and that will determine how often the treatments need to be repeated. It's just that when they do this, it's 5 consecutive days of like 3 hours of lying there while they, shoot the stuff into my veins. So it basically will knock out an entire week's worth of work. I mean, I can read probably while I'm there. Maybe. I don't know. I can't really can't hold my tablet with one hand, so probably not. So we'll see. This is going to affect our schedule for, everything for the rest of this year. But
yeah, if it's approved, then we'll at least get, here's when we're going to schedule the first series.
Right.
And it may even be, we're going to schedule 3 series or something like that, and then evaluate at the end of those. I don't know.
But I noticed yesterday afterwards that my left foot especially was getting really kind of ouchy. And the face that I made earlier in this program that Sharon noticed was because it felt like somebody had stuck a pin into my big toe.
Yep. Well, that started your symptoms. It may have been, it was probably developing quietly in the background, but your first real symptom was in spring of 23, I think.
Well, we were in Israel.
Yeah. You
and
said
I mentioned
that
to you
you
at
felt
El
like
Ahwat. We were on the site of Sisera's fortress. And I said, I feel like my feet are my toes are being stabbed with pins. Well, then complained to my doctor about that. And he said, it's probably just, age, because that's neuropathy. And, that sort of pins and needles feeling that older folks like us can get in hands and feet.
Yep.
But it continued, and then they sort of went numb. At this point, my feet are about 80% numb.
Which makes a real challenge to clip your toenails because you can't really feel where the clipper is.
Yeah.
And so I've been filing his toenails.
Yeah.
He's starting to turn into, like a Wolverine thing. He's got little claws and crazy Wolverine hair and beard.
Yeah. My primary care physician a year ago put me on a couple of things, one of which is testosterone. And this was on the assumption that what I was dealing with was CIDP. One of his nurse practitioners had come from a neurology practice, and she recognized what it was, and she called it. So God bless her. She was right. The testosterone is because it has the ability, according to recent research, to regrow myelin, which is that insulation, that protein coating around nerves.
And turns you into Wolverine.
Yeah, the hair on my forearms, is just going crazy.
I know.
I've got one sticking out there. It's like 3 or 4 inches long. It's like, what the heck?
Yeah, well.
Weird.
I love you.
But it has it has helped me get around better because I've got more muscle mass. the weight that I dropped and then put back on came back on as muscle, came off as body fat, came back on and muscle, and came back on as all muscle. So it's just that because my hands and feet are all messed up, I can't do anything with it.
Derek experienced driving one of the electric little, I don't know what you call them.
Yeah. Like one of the little electrified carts there.
Yeah.
We went to Lowe's yesterday to...
and it's a big store. You know how big that is.
Yeah. And so we had to go in there. We were looking at some things for fix-ups around the house as we are, in the process of selling.
Yep.
And so we got to go over here, and we got to go over there, and the other side of the store for this other thing. So Sharon's like, well, you want to try this? Well, I don't know. It's kind of, I don't want to admit that it... okay. It's like, hey, this is kind of cool.
I know. Derek wants one for everywhere.
Yeah.
Why should I have to walk?
Yeah. And it's cool. When you back up, you get the boop, boop.
I know.
Boop.
It's hilarious.
Yes, yeah.
But I'm glad that the store had something like that for you because, like I said, it is a big store.
So, now I'm going to go race around the Walmart next.
Yeah, no. And you were learning how to make really tight turns.
Oh, yeah. Those are pretty cool.
I know.
So, anyway.
And you may, if here's where we get to the Israel, just letting everybody know that we may, and this is very, very tentative, but we're going to talk to the Lipkins probably in the next few weeks about possibly postponing the October tour until next spring. But they had promised Derek that because, you can imagine if he has difficulty getting around a store in that has nice floors.
Yeah.
It's even more difficult when you got rocky terrain. So they said that they were going to get him a little electric cart or something like that for over there.
Yeah.
So you'll have a great time.
Yeah.
But we need to get over there. So right now, there are a lot of airlines that are canceling, or I should say, pausing flights to Tel Aviv. Long list is what you had read earlier. So for that very reason, we may need to. Yeah. Because you can't get there if you can't get on a plane.
Right. And if things spread, and news as of this morning is that Saudi Arabia has now officially joined the fight. And the UAE has been contributing. So it looks like this is becoming more of a regional war.
But the Houthis have also joined the fight.
The Houthis have joined the chat. Yeah, they fired a missile at Israel overnight. Russia, it's been reported now, is going to be shipping drones back to Iran. Iran had been supplying those Shahed drones to Russia that was firing into Ukraine. Ukraine is now supplying anti-drone drones to Israel and to the Gulf states. So, this is, you said on the Jim Baker program, I'm not sure when that program is going to air. If it has already, I'll put a link to it in the notes. But we were guests along with Bishop Ron Webb on the Jim Baker show, a couple of episodes that recorded a couple of weeks ago. And you said flat out to Jim when he asked you, could this lead to World War III? And you said, we're in it.
Well, yeah, it's already begun.
And he was stunned.
But you never, if you look at the wars that have been worldwide, at the time, the people who became involved in a regional war or what's been called a world war, they didn't recognize that was the ignition point. Yeah. It was only later on.
Yep.
I think October 7 of 2023 was the ignition point.
I agree. And in fact, as we said last week, you could go back to 2014 when the U.S. helped drive out the Russian-backed president who had been elected, Yanukovych.
Right.
I think this has been a slow run up, but we are in it at this point, and it will likely spread before it gets better. But let's bring it around to this, that we are living in times that are getting close to the return of our Lord and Savior, because he told us when we see all these things to look up.
Yes.
Why? Because redemption draws near.
Absolutely. And to remember also that other humans are being used by the fallen realm. We're not wrestling against flesh and blood.
Yes.
but against spirits. And these spirits are inspiring and in some cases directly using human beings against one another. That's tragedy.
Yeah, it is. But their time grows short.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why things are getting crazier. Satan is angry because he knows that his time grows short. He's smart enough to know that there is no exit ramp for him from what lies ahead, which is the lake of fire.
Yeah, the exit ramp, if it ever existed, would have been after his boast that he could outdo the Lord.
Yeah.
It might have been at that point that those rebels, if they had begged forgiveness and admitted that they had sinned,
Mm-hmm.
that they might have been given forgiveness.
Yeah.
That ship sailed.
Yeah. But it's not too late for you.
Exactly.
And there is nothing that you have done in your past that is so bad that God will not come down to your level and lift you out of it.
That's true.
It may seem that way. If only he knew. Well, he does know.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, he's known since the beginning of time.
And yet he died for you.
Yes.
Knowing everything we would ever do.
Right.
And also knowing, because Romans 8:28 begins with, "For we know that God works everything together for good according to his purposes for those who are called for his purposes."
Yes.
And he will call you, and he will work all of your bad choices into something beautiful, covering it with his blood.
Yeah. And I think the older we get, we've talked about this, off air, that the more we appreciate that. And I know it's the more emotional I get when I talk about it. And it became a running joke at some of the conferences over previous years, better get a box of Kleenex up there at the podium because Derek's going to lose it again.
Get a case.
It's become even more so since my health challenges have begun. And, just to be clear, my health challenges are a nuisance. They are not life-threatening.
Mm.
The pneumonia was, kind
that
of
was life-threatening.
Rising into the yellow zone there. Instead, wasn't quite code red, but, 7 days in the hospital for something like that. That's not, nothing to sneeze at. But still, I know that there are many of you, and of course Sharon's niece, Sarah, stage 4 bowel cancer, and she's 20 years younger than me.
Yeah.
She's dealing with something that could deprive her family of her presence. Many of you have dealt with and are dealing with things that are, a threat to call you home. And I said maybe threat is the wrong word, because how do you threaten a Christian with eternal life with Christ? So I'm not complaining, but it does make me appreciate what our Lord has done. And, my dad went through that. He suffered a heart attack at the age of 54, and afterwards came out more demonstrative of his affection.
Openly affectionate.
Yeah. I mean, it was still, he was still from that generation where guys didn't show emotion, so he kind of mumbled it when I know what he meant. And, but I understand why he got more emotional when you're starting to realize I've got fewer turns around the sun ahead of me than I've got behind me. It becomes more important, and it becomes more important to share that with those around you. So just remember, as Jim Baker always closes his show, God loves you. He really does, and he demonstrated it in the most incredible way possible by being willing to endure the most painful torture known to humanity, crucifixion. Knowing from the beginning of time all the stupid, rebellious things that we would do, all the mean, vindictive, petty things that we would do to one another, to friends, family members, the pain that we would cause one another. And he was still willing to endure that for you and me. it makes you emotional because it becomes more real, I think, as you get older, and especially as you begin to endure some of these health challenges. And you've been dealing with chronic things for years, and I didn't really ever appreciate that until just the last couple of years.
Oh, my stuff's minor compared to yours. I can still get around. I can still open a jar now and then. But I believe the Lord has done that. He has given me clear eyesight in many ways. Having had some work done on my eyes, I can now see to drive. And He spared your brain.
That is the thing. Yeah, and also apparently it's a common side effect, a common symptom, the difficulty swallowing.
Yes, I know. I had looked that up.
Yeah, Dr. Maganti asked me about that yesterday. No difficulty swallowing? I was thinking, no brain fog either.
I know.
Oh, well, that's good.
And no depression.
No depression, right? Yeah. So, and again, that's the Lord, because when you're dealing with these things, it's like, I used to be able to do with this. Why can't I do this now? Tying my shoe. Actually, I did retie the shoe the other day.
Honey, that's wonderful.
I know.
Good for you.
I feel like I'm 5 again. I tied my shoe. Aren't I good?
These are big victories.
Yeah. So, toe stabbing again.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's a friend of ours who's been called home to be with the Lord, who dealt with chronic issues in the last few years of his life, made it more and more difficult for him to speak. And he would get very down. And I can understand why. So again, I'm not complaining, because what I'm going through, and appreciate all your kind wishes and the number of posts on Facebook, especially regarding prayers when I was in the hospital last month, was just really humbling.
It was wonderful.
But again, there are many people out there who are dealing with much, much worse. And if it's in your power, if you know a family member, a friend, or even a senior citizen who could use a visit in the nursing home, I just encourage you to do that, because you never know when it'll be the last time.
That's true.
And as David Heavener, the reason he named his series, his award-winning series, The Last Evangelist, it's because for somebody, you will be their last evangelist. And you never know who that person is.
Exactly.
Or where you'll meet him.
Exactly.
So, anyway, didn't mean to drag this all out.
No, I think that those were wonderful words to end with. And tomorrow we will be doing the Gilbert House Fellowship.
Yes, the Book of First Enoch again.
Yeah, because it's the last Sunday. When did that happen?
Yeah, another month. We're a quarter of the way through the year already.
I know. I will say really quickly, just for those who've been asking about the Book 9 of the Red Wing Saga. Yeah, I write a scene as often as I can, but I'll say again, if my book is not out until late this year, that's fine. You, Derek, are my priority. That's what the Lord has told me. Do the book. It will come out. Don't worry about it. It'll work. In the meantime, I've got lots of plots for the other books. But you, sir, you are my priority.
Well, we will keep you posted. I hope I will be getting immunoglobulin.
Getting IG'd.
Yeah, and see the OG, getting the IG. There we go.
Oh.
You could do the OG-IG report.
There you go. That's it.
Yeah.
That is it. And you know what? If you're listening and you've had that, Derek has been communicating with one individual who has the same diagnosis and has been going through this treatment. So if you've had it, let us know.
Yeah, and Joshua has been a real help in
and you gotta love
letting you know
his
what
name.
to expect. Yes, yep, absolutely. But it is rather rare condition, wasn't it? Like 0.1% of the world.
You're just, you and Joshua and the others, you're all really, really special.
I guess. So, well, tomorrow morning, we got that. And tomorrow evening, Lieutenant Colonel Robert McGinnis.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's, well, again, we told you about his books, AI, and need to make time to read those. Because
he's got an older book called Future War.
And Future War would fit right in there as well. He's he is a writing machine, because in between writing these books, he's also cranking out columns for FoxNews.com.
And making appearances on Fox TV and going on really wonderful mountain climbing vacations with his wife. So,
that's right.
Do you have extra hours in your day, Bob?
In fact, I just mentioned this to Jim Baker, because he was not aware of Bob's books on AI. And yeah, Jim is really interested in that. So I think they're going to book him for the Jim Baker show very soon.
Good.
So,
Good.
But anyway, yeah, tomorrow evening, 7 p.m. Central Time, the discussion with Bob McGinnis about his books on AI and where he sees it leading humanity. So until next time, I'm Derek Gilbert.
I am Sharon Gilbert, and we really do love all of you. Bye-bye, everybody.
PID radio is on the air. Politics, prophecies, and conspiracy.